Ugh, it's summer. It's so hot.
It's only 81 degrees Fahrenheit outside.
Hello, and welcome back to Fridgestuck, with fridge facts and theories about Homestuck. Today we're covering a lot of subjects, so let's just make sure we get the basic facts clear. Carapaces are the people of the medium, paradoxically existing before, during, and after a universe-creating game is played. As the name implies, they have a skin-like shell made of carapace, and it's not confirmed whether or not they have a full skeletal system or not. Most have red blood, with the Black Queen of the Trolls universe as the only known exception, due to her ties to their universe. Some have fangs, others do not. They have many different body shapes and heights, and the number of fingers is not set in stone, even to the same character. The only way for a Carapacian to be affected by the session sprite prototyping is through a Queen's Ring or a King's Scepter, and it's suggested that most of the population is made up of clones, since creator Andrew Hussie confirms that Carapacians with the barcode on their skin are manufactured. They also have an acute knowledge about how far they've ever walked, and can live for hundreds of years, even in the worst circumstances and conditions. This is due to the fact that most Carapacians are designed to inevitably become exiles, to rebuild the world, and to instruct the players of their session in the far future. So let's get this list started with, of course, the Wayward Vagabond, aka the Mayor, aka WV. Simply put, an exile's role is to reclaim any leftover planets from the session via the Reckoning, and rebuild their civilization, which for the kids of the beta universe is their dead Earth. WV is the instigator of the new civic system of government on the post-apocalyptic Earth, WV himself serving as the mayor of Cannes and later Exile Town. He was also considered for the Peregrine Mendicant's Wastelandic Vindicator, until she took up the responsibility herself. Life, it seems, was never particularly kind to WV, as chronologically he appears as a war-weary villain. A villain spelled with an E was essentially a serf that is a slave to the landowners in a feudal system. Hinted to be a former soldier using his previous uniform as a scarecrow, when the Black King appears and the war breaks out, setting his fields ablaze, WV starts a revolt with the support of the soldiers, effortlessly uniting both the Dursite and Prospitan halves. However, the scarecrow from earlier is ineffective, and the revolt does not go over well due to everyone getting jacked. WV is left as the only survivor, for unknown reasons. Now cloaked in John's bedsheets and in possession of the White Queen's Ring, he's given the name Wizardly Vassal, and experiences John's ascension to God tier and his Windy Thing powers in person. He initially fights with Liv Tyler, but is successfully auspiced by the Courtyard Droll. John tasks the three to take the battlefield's tumor to Dave and Rose on Durst, and they go their separate ways. Droll, as a Durst agent, naturally betrays WV and Liv, stealing the wallet and escaping. Liv manages to get the tumor card back, WV just glad that he still has the ring. Jack Noir teleports to the ship and blasts it from orbit, sending WV crashing to Earth to roam the wasteland as Wayward Vagabond, finding Skyanet, founding Cantown, and managing to make a bunch of new friends. One odd thing of note is that the Exiles for the Earth kids don't have a Silodex system, and have to carry everything with their hands. Maybe the Midnight Crew's civilization grew fast enough to develop this tech, or Hussie just wanted to make the Problem Sleuth jokes that badly. But I'm not sure if the true reason has ever been addressed. WV is able to sneak in some high-quality keyboard jokes in the lab. Pressing the tab key unlocks Tab Soda, and turning off Caps Lock reveals a book on human etiquette. Subsequently, he becomes nicer when addressing John. Because screaming in caps is rude. It's been stated that WV's teeth are suited for green plants. True enough, he eats a pumpkin and paper. What? Paper is made of plants? He also eats green chalk, lives eye, and uranium because green equals plants? One pretty meta thing that WV does inside of Skynet is paint the medium. Painting the medium is a trope, defined by TV tropes as changing the usual way for a story is presented in order to reveal something particular about a character or the plot. And Homestuck does this a lot. A lot. All the time. When WV gets trapped inside of the Skynet lab, he falls asleep in a callback to Problem Sleuth and has a daring dream. Serenity the Firefly quoting Jade's monologue from an earlier act about furries. WV's dream goes straight PTSD when he then finds that he is wearing the Queen's ring and, looking a lot like Jack, kills a bunch of carapaces. But this might have been the plan all along, as it's seen that Vriska is sharing the dream with the Exile, trying to convince him not to fight Jack, that he was hers to deal with. Considering that WV's chest shows the light symbol, it's fair to assume that Vriska was tampering with people's heads, even in her sleep. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite male lady, Peregrine Mendicant, also known as PM, and Parcel Mistress, and Prospectant Monarch, and maybe even Private Message. She is a mail carrier after all. She fulfills the postal service slot of the new civic government system. The postal service, at least here in the United States, is stereotypically known for prompt and reliable deliveries, even through rain, sleet, snow, and hail. In fact, it's her dedication to her job that gets her wandering through enemy territory, getting exiled, and ultimately getting coronated as the Prospectant Monarch, as traveling from the Castle of Durst to the Throne Room of Prospect is what promoted PM. Why? Chess rules. In the game of chess, your average pawn can't do much, as it has a very limited movement on the board. But if the pawn can reach the opposite side of the board, aka the 8th place, it can be promoted to a rook, bishop, knight, or queen. 8th place? I guess that explains why Snowman was the former Black Queen. Anyway, speaking of chess rules, as a pawn, PM can't do anything about the pieces that are behind her, so she can easily get her ring pickpocketed by Droll. But as a queen, she can move anywhere. The sky is the limit. PM turning into her canine form is humorously hinted at in a song from the Wanderers album, May or May Not, by Toby Fox, where there are barks and cue Blue's Clues.
Don't you do it.
Here's the mail, it never fails, it makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail, mail!
I try to convince her to act like a respectable human being and she does this to spite me.
In the end, PM has to deal with those she hates to priority ship some justice. Her black romance dogfights with Jack Noir, seen as a mail carrier versus a dog. Dogfight. Lastly, PM is a reference to the movie and book, The Postman, where a drifter dons a postman's uniform and bag, delivering old mail to the survivors of the post-apocalypse in the northwestern United States. PM is shown to be wandering the wasteland of John's old hometown of Maple Valley, Washington, and the letter that she carries is even addressed to a Dr. David Brinner, with the author of the Postman book being David Brin, who earned his PhD at the University of San Diego. And of course, there was the tossing of the magic rings into the fire of the forge. I've got nothing. Now let's talk about the Aimless Renegade, aka AR, aka Authority Regulator, aka Armaments Regent. Of course, there's more than one authority regulator in universe because it's a title and not a name, so we don't know if any of the ARs in the post-Scratch universe are the same Exile that we know. AR does not do much, but what little he does affects the story in a big way. He was the one to bring one of PM's sought-after packages to Durce's castle, and allows the audience to view the birth of Becquerel through his point of view. He also later saves John from the ectobiology lab, which ends up sending him to Jade's Island in the post-apocalyptic future. As an exile, AR serves in the new civil government as both the judicial system and law enforcement. He's the judge, jury, and executioner.
I am the law!
Have I mentioned that May or May Not is my favorite song from the Wanderers album? Also, he can't hit the side of a barn door, but he really cares about civilians and the law to the point of death. And die he does. Now let's talk about the Windswept Questant, aka WQ, aka the White Queen, aka the Adored Sovereign. Like the Black Queen of the Troll session, WQ speaks to a seer and a light player. Technically the same player, but it checks out. But that's about where the similarities end, as it's been shown that WQ's actually in love with the White King, but the Dursite royals are hinted to be together solely for political reasons. WQ crowns PM and takes up the position of royal advisor. She reunites with the White King for what seems like 2 seconds, and then dies at Jack's hands. But can I just say, WQ's wisdom is under-acknowledged, and I'm writing this wrong right now. An example of just how cool-headed and cunning the White Queen is comes from the Alpha Kids session, when she offers to release the stab-happy Jack Noir in return for an apology from the Condescension, knowing that the Condis is too vain to ever accept that, and that she would prefer to leave her arch-agent incarcerated rather than to show an inch of humility. Now let's talk about the Writ Keeper, aka the White King. He really didn't do that much. He just gave his scepter to PM, who immediately lost it to Droll. He reads Rose's Complacency of the Learned, and had to stay in the Lotus for hundreds of years, to be promptly killed soon after. Now, of course, we cannot ever forget Ms. Paint, Andrew Hussie's favorite exile. Her name deriving from the old name of Homestuck.com, mspaintadventures.com. Ms. Paint was inspired by Ryan North of Dinosaur Comics, asking Hussie, who is Miss Paint, and why has she not shown up in her own adventures? She was introduced officially over half a year later, on January 2nd, 2011, as Hussie's maid. When Hussie Death of the Authors out of the comic, she joined Spade Slick and the Felt as the new 8-Ball member. And she is canonically and romantically involved with Spade Slick, and his alternate self, Jack Noir. And the last fridge fact for the Exiles is... okay, so it's more like 3, but they all have to do with Hussie's Forum Spring comments, so I'm counting it as 1. Hussie has mentioned that there is potentially a WV in each game session. By that I mean a war-weary villain. A soldier bound to revolt against his king and bring peace between the two factions. I mean, every ideation of Jack Noir wants to overthrow the queen, so it's not completely unfeasible. In addition, Hussie said that the sections with WV and the Exiles were intentionally inserted for him to decompress and prepare himself for the next part of the main plot. It's kind of weird that WV was hated by a section of the fan base when he was first introduced. But Hussie tells his audience to expect the unexpected. I remember when WV was horsing around with Cantown, there were similar murmurs of impatience, and many believed firmly it couldn't possibly be going anywhere that served the story. Nobody could know his big can in the desert would blast off soon, let alone that a year later, for reasons they couldn't yet fathom, thousands of teenagers to smear gray makeup all over their face because of the stuff that happened in this story. What could possibly happen later that would cause this? Pretty hard to imagine when you're the guy in December of '09 impatiently waiting for WV to eat parts of a pumpkin, drink tab, and play chess with himself. To find out, you had to be in it for the long haul, as you must be now. I'll do what I'm going to do, and one way or another, it'll get where it's headed. It always does. Thank you guys so much for watching this Fridgestuck episode for the Exiles. I hope you enjoyed. Any facts I missed? Do you have a character or a concept that you'd like to see? Leave it down in a comment below and it might end up on the show someday. Be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, and check out my Patreon, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
Hey there. Consider becoming a patron, just like the phenomenal Gerald Thomas and Bleed Red.